What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with part 2 of the coverage for the Hakes Lot 235 auction results. We covered a lot of the early Star Wars figures, the rocket-firing Fett, all kinds of great items in the first video, so make sure to go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. And as we talked about in that video, prices were way down. And I think it's part of it is just the economy. Part of it is maybe the fact that we've had a number of auctions in fairly rapid succession with some really rare items. And we're going to talk about Empire Strikes Back items all the way through the Power of the Force line and some droids figures, as you can see in the video here, or in the thumbnail for this video. And there were some really good deals to be had. Some of them sold above the estimates. Some of them came in way below. And here's one that came in way below. This was an Empire Strikes Back 21 back transition card. Luke Skywalker in his X-Wing pilot outfit. It was a punched example graded AFA 80. These transition cards have the free secret Star Wars action figure offer for the Bosk mail away. And there were a number of these that were at auction on in the latest Hakes batch, and just some really nice ones. And I think I've got a few others that I'm just going to cover. I picked a smattering of different items for these two videos. It's by no means complete. There were just some really significant items in this auction, and this one sold for $7.93. And again, this includes the 18% buyer's premium that Hakes charges to buyers. So all of the prices I'm quoting are including the buyer's premium, but not including shipping. And shipping has gone up a little bit from their last auction, as noted by a number of collectors on Facebook as we were discussing the Hakes auction results. But still, that price is pretty low relative to the value code of 1,000 to 2,000. I think $800 for this 21 back transition card Luke is a pretty darn good deal. Clear blister, just really fantastic condition. Here was another one. This was another steal of a deal in my mind. This was an unpunched Snaggletooth on the same card back. Look how beautiful that one was. And this one sold for $590, including the auction premium. And the value code was 700 to 1,000, which I was expecting kind of 700 to 800 for this one. To get that one for $590, that was a fantastic deal. You'll have to excuse the thunder if you heard that in the background. We've got a massive storm going here. Here was the Greedo. This one came in a little higher than I expected. $992.97 was the final sales price. Kind of at the upper end of the value code that Hakes had. I guess Greedo must not have been produced in very high numbers, because this was a punched example as well. And maybe it's part of it is just because Greedo's maybe surging in popularity. I don't know, but I don't know enough about these transition cards to know whether that this was one of the tougher ones to find. I don't think I pulled up the Stormtrooper, but the Stormtrooper sold for big money. And I know that one, the 21 back transition card ESB Stormtrooper, goes for a lot of money, because that's a very low produced card back for the Stormtrooper. But this Greedo also sold for fairly big money. Here was a pretty incredible item. This was an Empire Strikes Back store display, but this is a massive store display that shows the Battle of Hoth. Look how cool that is. It was graded AFA 85, and it was 24 by 34 inches long. So this is a truly incredible item. And it came in at the upper end of the value code for Hakes. It sold for $10,260. So that is just, here's one more look at it. Look how beautiful that is. It includes all the toys. And I don't know why the AT-AT is shooting at the AT-ST Walker, but it's just the perspective, I think. But what an awesome item. And that would be a really tough one to display in my collection room, but truly awesome. A couple of these C3po prototype action figure carrying cases sold, and there were two of them. This one was the off-white prototype case, so you can see how that looks. It's kind of pre-vac metallized. I've seen a number of these kind of examples where it's kind of cast in prototype plastic, and this one was graded 80 by AFA off-white. And so that's a pre-production item that sold for $6,555, but that's still towards the lower end of the value code. I don't know the data points on past sales for these, but that was pretty cool. But the one that sold for a lot more money was this one. This is in a dull gold finish, so a little bit closer to the production item that had kind of like a very shiny gold plastic. But this one was the dull gold carry case. It was graded AFA 80+. The value code was $5,000 to $10,000. It sold for $13,525. So Clearly, you know, the very rare items have held up very well. You know, mostly in this last Hakes auction. Obviously, the rocket firing Fett kind of bucked that trend, but I think it's because, as was discussed on Facebook, so many of them have come up for sale this year. I mean, we've seen 2 or 3 or 4 examples that have sold over the course of the year, and I think that probably held the prices down. Here was a nice deal. I thought this was a 65 back B Ugnaught AFA 80 clear blister. Tough to find these Return of the Jedi card backs with a clear blister. I actually bid on this one, but it, you know, I got tied up with some other auctions, and the value code was $400 to $700, which I was expecting it to easily sell for. It sold for $354 after the buyer's premium. That was a pretty darn good deal. And on the other end of the spectrum, I think this one went a little higher than I expected. This was a 65 back C Lando skiff guard. It was also a clear blister, unpunched. It did have a price sticker kind of right in the middle there, but I was expecting it maybe $450 to $500. It sold for $649. So that was kind of towards the upper end of the value code, but it was an AFA 85. And, you know, as we've talked about, AFA 85s and 90s, especially for mint on cards, you're going to get some pretty nice premiums for them. This one I thought came in a little lower than I expected, and clearly lower than what Hakes expected. This was a 77 back A Boba Fett, very slightly yellowed blister, unpunched, just a gorgeous example. No price sticker. That is a really, really nice example in my mind. And it sold for $3,252 after the buyer's premium. The value code was $5,000 to $10,000. That value code was maybe a little high. I was thinking maybe $4,500-ish would be the number, but $5,000 was not too far off from where it could have sold, you know, even a few months ago. And I've seen a few examples of this that have sold on Facebook. Not on Hakes, on Facebook, that have sold for more than this number. So I think this was a pretty good buy at $3,250. A number of Revenge of the Jedi proof cards sold at auction. I just picked a smattering of them. This was an AFA 85 Dengar. I thought this price was great, $16, $17. There was one that sold on Facebook for more than this. So this was a pretty good buy in my mind, $16, $17 for an AFA 85 Dengar. Revenge of the Jedi. Obviously, this was before the name of the movie was changed to Return of the Jedi, and a number of these made it out for 50 different characters into, you know, the engineering kind of stage for the early transition card Return of the Jedis. But that was a beautiful item. 16, 17 took that one. This Obi-Wan was an AFA 80 plus. That sold for $23.55. That was towards the lower end of the value code as well. The Stormtrooper AFA 85, that the value code for that was $2,000 to $5,000, which I was expecting closer to $3,000 for this one. The Stormtroopers always have a pretty heavy following, and, you know, focus collectors, things like that. That one sold for $23.36. Again, another good price. I think that was very fair. On the other end of the spectrum, though, was this one. I was expecting this one that it would go closer to the lower end of the price value code from Hakes. Hakes valued this AFA 85 Revenge of the Jedi Darth Vader proof code at $5,000 to $10,000. I was expecting $5,000-ish, but it still sold a little higher than I expected, $65.54. That's a big number, but it is Vader, and that is a gorgeous, gorgeous card back, proof card. So I think, you know, again, I don't follow these Revenge of the Jedi proof cards that closely. I just, you know, off the top of my head, I can remember a few that have sold on the Deal or No Deal group on Facebook, so I try to kind of keep those numbers in the back of my head. And for most common characters, very high grade, you're kind of talking $1,800 to $2,500. But for the more popular characters, you know, $3,000 to $4,000 is not out of the realm. But $65.54 seems like a big number to me, but I don't follow these very closely. This was a cool one. This was a Hungarian bootleg Biker Scout mint on card. It did have a little bit of wear in the upper left-hand corner, as you can see here. Some creasing, but, you know, these are stapled onto the card back. It did have a little crack right there, but a very cool item to see, you know, mint on card for these vintage bootlegs. And this one sold for $13.62, and that includes the buyer's premium. I think that price was pretty good relative to where I've seen some of them sell. There's one on Facebook right now in the Deal or No Deal group that is an AFA qualified 50 Hungarian Leia, and I expect that one to sell for $2,000 plus. So $13.62 for the Biker Scout is a pretty good deal in my mind. This TIE Interceptor was graded AFA 80, mint and sealed box, and that one sold for 1107. That's not a bad price at all. In the current environment, the value code on it was a 1,000 to 2,000. I was expecting this to go for maybe 1,500-ish. So 1107 is not a terrible deal at all for that one. This was also, I thought, a pretty good deal relative to the last one that sold. I don't know if it was the June or the May Hakes auction, but this one was the Meccano miscard with Luke Jedi on the Yan Solo card back. So this is a factory error miscard, and it had the blister support because these blisters are very, very fragile. It was graded AFA 30, and I believe one sold for over $2,000. It's the exact same miscard a couple of months ago in the last Hakes auction. This one sold for $13.92. I think that was a pretty good buy in my mind. Very cool item. Next up, we had a really interesting 4-pack, excuse me. This is the Italian Overstock 4-pack, and it included my really nice Cloud Car palette. I would love to have this item, but this included, 4 items. These I believe, were sold in Ireland. We'll look at the notes in a second, but it had Teebo, the Emperor, the Cloud Car palette, and then Lumat in kind of this Overstock 4-pack, collector's special offer pack. And it was graded by Collector Archive Services 70 plus. Yeah, Italian 4-pack. And again, it was graded 70 plus by Collector Archive Services. The value code on it was 5 to 10. It sold for 4,326. So it came in below the value code. But pretty interesting item that you do see different combinations of figures for these. They were offered in Italy in 1983. And, a very wide variety of Palatoy Tri-Logos that would come with these. But what an awesome item. This one was an AFA 85 bi-logo Scout Walker. Very, very good final sales price in my mind. $826 was the final sales price for an AFA 85 Scout Walker. To get that for $826, that's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal. I've seen them sell on Facebook, same grade, for over $1,000. So pretty decent deal there on the Scout Walker. I thought this was another pretty good deal. This was the Power of the Force 92 back loop battle poncho, $649 for an AFA yellowed 80. Very slight yellowing though, unpunched, very clean. Look how clean that blister was for the loop. And $649 for that was a great deal. That was well below the value code. Well, not well below, but below the lower end of the value code. I was expecting $750-ish for that, so that's a pretty good buy. A few others we got here, but before we wrap it up really quickly, this is a qualified 80 grade Tatooine skiff on the Power of the Force box, and that was a beautiful box art. I love that. That one sold for $1427. $1427, and that was kind of towards the middle of the value code for that. A couple of very rare Power of the Force items sold. This was the 92 back AT-AT driver. These were only available in Australia. That one sold for $7,009, AFA yellowed 80, but these were only available down in the Australia and I believe New Zealand markets. So very, very tough to find the AT-AT driver on that Power of the Force card back. So it sold kind of right in the middle of the range there. And then, of course, we had this one. This was the Kenner Canada Yak Face. This is one of the holy grails for Power of the Force collectors. It was an AFA 75. And the value code was 10 to 20. It came in towards the lower end of the range as well. So $12,493. And it just seems like these really, really expensive items, those high-end bidders were just not there for this auction. It just, for the most part, they came in towards the lower end of the value code or below the value code for a lot of these rare items. But another beautiful example of the yak face there. Finally, we got an AFA 90 Droid C3po. This number surprised me. I did not expect this to sell that high. The value code was $1,000 to $2,000. $2,000 is ridiculous. That's not worth $2,000. But 1312 took that one home. I was expecting, honestly, $800 to $900 for that one. So, whatever floats your boat. It was freshly graded. It was a beautiful example of the Droids C3po, loose graded by Collector Archive Services 90. But that number seems high to me. There was an AFA 85 that sold around $900 on eBay, and 1312 just seems too high to me. But what do I know? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed looking at some of these auction results. You can go back to Hakes' website. They have a full rundown with every single item that's sold. I just picked a nice smattering from the Empire Strikes Back all the way through the Droids line, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much, and I'll be back soon.